I had a question this week about bank ID checks, and it's a bit of a pet peeve, so let's talk about it. Over the last few years, banks, brokers, and other financial institutions in Japan have been doing some checks on their customers. These checks are to confirm their address, their identity, and to get some extra information about them. And this is all happening because of new Know Your Customer regulations that have been brought in recently. And there's a few reasons for this. Probably the most important is pressure from the US and other international kind of banking systems where this is normal and Japan was kind of behind the times. Another reason is concern about financial crime, particularly misusing bank accounts. There's lots of stories about people leaving Japan, selling their bank accounts to shady people who then use those accounts to receive money from scams and other crimes. So the Know Your Customer regulations are designed to make it more difficult to do that kind of thing and to make sure that everyone who has an account with a financial institution is using it legally. So what information do banks actually need to collect? Well, this isn't really mandated. And so banks are making up the rules themselves, which is why you get so much variation in terms of which banks contact you and what kind of information they ask for. Now, probably the most basic and most universal is to confirm the customer's address, and you do that just by sending them the survey. Once they receive that and they answer the survey, that's proof that they live at the registered address. Sometimes they'll ask about the purpose of having the account, they'll ask extra information. And for Japanese customers, that's generally the end of it. And that's why this is a pet peeve for me. So my wife is Japanese, so she's started getting this stuff as well recently. And I've been looking at the forms. And a lot of the time, the form consists of a checkbox that says I'm Japanese or I'm not Japanese. And if you tick the I'm Japanese box, that's it. That's the end of the form. And if you tick the I'm not Japanese box, then you turn over and you've got a whole bunch of extra information you're asked to give, including copies of your Zaidyu card. And I'm not a fan of submitting that kind of ID without a really good reason. Banks are not required to collect copies of your Zaidyu card, but a lot of them interpret the law and decide that they want to. So what happens if you don't comply with the request? Well, at the moment, it depends. Our local bank, 77 Bank, just sent a form to my wife and there's an FAQ section, and one of the questions is, what happens if I don't provide the information? And the answer is, we will ask you to provide the information again. Which is not a hugely compelling argument in my view, but that's the stakes we're dealing with here. In other cases, banks, brokers, financial institutions may well freeze your account if you don't answer the survey, you don't provide the information. In some cases, they may even close it. So what do I do with these requests for information? Well, it depends on the account. So I have about a dozen bank accounts, some are more important than others. I have a few broker accounts, again some are more important than others, and basically for my main broker account where most of my investments are, for my main bank account which I use for everything basically, I would comply with the Know Your Customer survey. I would provide the information. I would grudgingly provide a copy of my Zaidyu card if it was absolutely necessary, because that's important. I don't want those accounts to be frozen. I don't want those accounts to be closed. For my other accounts, these random bank accounts with 2,000 or 3,000 yen in, I would not comply. I would ignore the request and see what happened. And actually I did that with Monex. So Monex Securities is a broker that I have an account with, but I don't have a lot of money in the account. And they asked me for my Zaidyu card last year and I just completely ignored them, and nothing so far has happened. So there is going to be some variation in the results here. In an ideal world, banks and financial institutions would treat foreign customers and Japanese customers the same. You know, if you need to confirm the address, confirm the address. If you need a copy of ID, then you need a copy of ID. But I think this tendency to treat foreign customers differently is not something I like very much. So if I can get away with it, I will not comply with that kind of extra scrutiny. But how about you? Have you had any of these requests for information? How did you deal with it? And were there any consequences? Do leave us a comment if you've got stories to tell, and I'll see you in the next video.